corner. Hyman without a stick. Ready to start on the pass to Quad. Block. Leafs get it again. Matthews to center. And the net is gone. Holy Mackinaw, they're going to the playoffs.
Created by Die-Hard Leafs fans for Die-Hard Leafs fans. This is the Holy Mackinaw podcast with Clayton Terrio, Danny Horton, and Bret Wills.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Holy Mackinaw podcast. I'm Clayton Terrio here once again with Danny Horton and Bret Wills. We are here again in the same spot we've been for about 17 years. And I can imagine nobody is happy. And I don't know where to begin. We'll start with the Game 7 reaction and thoughts, and we'll start with you, Danny. Where are you at today?
Oh boy. Today was a really rough day, to be quite honest with you guys. I'm sure you guys feel the exact same way, but last night watching the game, you could tell as soon as they went down 2-0, it was it. Like you knew it was it. And, you know, credit to Montreal. Montreal played a great game last night. They got into the shooting lanes, but once again, the Leafs' best players in an elimination game, MIA, they couldn't get the job done. And the word that pops to my mind or comes to mind is just, it's pathetic. It's disappointing. It's pathetic. There's a lot more words I could use to describe it as well. I don't know if we want to keep this a somewhat family show, but I remember going to bed last night was even tough, guys. I woke up periodically through the night and I was upset. I remember waking up in my own bed as a grown man, and I was embarrassed throughout the night, laying in my own bed, trying to sleep, of being a Leaf fan. It's just brutal at this point to not be able to get over that hurdle with that roster. We spoke about it last podcast. The roster that, in my opinion, and in many hockey analysts' opinion, built to compete for the Stanley Cup, and once again they fall short.
Yeah, well, that's about right. Bret, how do you feel today? How's it going for you?
You know, Danny is just that was quite subdued. I'm pissed off. I am so upset right now. I don't know where to start. I really like I sound like I'm excited to be here. I'm not excited to be here. This is ridiculous. Like we sit and we watch these guys. They get paid millions and millions of dollars, and they come out as flat as they did last night. God bless Jack Campbell. Oh my God. He is the savior of this series. If not for Jack Campbell, it could have been over a lot quicker than it was. But you come out flat. You got a guy like Mitch Marner, who I have heard rumors that he has not been happy all year with his line mates, and whatever. I don't really care. Mitch, you're getting paid X amount of dollars to play with line mates that you're playing with. Suck it up. Put the puck in the net. Pass the puck if you're not ready to shoot. It's embarrassing, and I'm so bloody frustrated with this organization. And boys, I hope to God by August, I feel a lot better than I do today. Because right now, I can tell you, I'm just about done.
Yeah, even Steve Dangle has been saying, like, he's been thinking of not doing LFRs anymore because it's just like, I can't keep doing this to myself year after year. But I don't believe him. I don't think he's going to do it. I think he's going to keep doing it. But I am not happy either. It was in the last about 3 minutes is when it really sunk in for me. Like, I knew we weren't going to come back 3 games in a row. Let's be real. Like, that's just, you can't come out flat 3 games in a row and expect to just score in the last 8 minutes, tie it, and probably lose in overtime anyway. But I was yelling 3-1. I yelled 3-1 at the top of my lungs at the TV. Like, you had this. Like you, you guys absolutely outplayed them in 2, 3, and 4, and then you pissed it down the drain. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I see a lot of people saying trade Mitch, fire Keith, fire. I don't think it's management or the coaching. Like Danny, you pointed to it in the first episode. Like we have the pieces, the effort's just not there. And like we were talking about last night, the effort is there, but it's not good enough. There's effort. It's not like they're not trying, but they just, I don't know what it is. That it's just unbelievable. And I really don't know. Like before we add any more, I was just curious who you guys thought are 3 guys that you thought were really good in this series, and 3 guys that you're absolutely just embarrassed that they're on the Leafs. And Danny, we'll start with you again.
Okay, so three guys that, well, I wouldn't say I'm embarrassed that they're on the Leafs of. We are extremely fortunate. A guest appearance by my dog Jack there in the background, but we are extremely fortunate to have Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. And I know, Jackie, I know a lot of people get emotional over these things, and Bret, you touched on it when you were speaking. You said, I was quite subdued. I've gone through a mix of emotions today. When I went to work, like, honest to God, work was the last place I wanted to be at today. I had so many people visit my desk today at work, colleagues, friends and colleagues, and I felt like it was kind of like a funeral, and people were paying their respects to me. It's just embarrassing. But going back to what Clayton was saying and asked me about 3 players that were disappointed in. Obviously, you want more production from Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. I think that's a given. Other players that were disappointing. That's tough because I don't think they weren't trying. I really don't. I just don't know. I don't think this team can get over that mental hurdle, and they need their best players in order to get over that hurdle to produce in the playoffs. And they have to find a way. Guys that I was impressed with, that I liked in this series, Jason Spezza, my God, guys, like, unbelievable. I'd bring Spets back in a heartbeat. Other guys I was impressed with, TJ Brody, fantastic. Jack Campbell played out of his mind, like, unbelievable. I didn't think Jack had that in him. I sent you guys some stats today that I saw on Twitter, and he actually had a better save percentage and goals against average than Carey Price. Who would have guessed or thought that was even possible, knowing the way that we watched Carey Price play at the other end? But Jack had better numbers. He gave this team every ounce of himself and gave them every chance to compete. But there is some kind of mental hurdle that this group has to overcome. And I don't know what it is. Like, there is no magic elixir. I was telling people today, there is no magic elixir when it comes to the playoffs. It's actually quite simple. It's not easy to do, but it's quite simple in theory. You compete hard, you work your ass off, things tighten up defensively, so things are not going to be given to you. And you've got to go to the dirty areas. Yes, Austin Matthews, went into the corners. He was physical. Clayton, you mentioned in the first episode, he leads the team in hits in the playoffs. That's great, but you have to go to the net. You're not going to be able to dangle and do all these things on the periphery and have the time. I'm specifically talking about Mitch Marner, okay? And I love Mitch Marner. You guys listened to me rave about Mitch Marner in the first episode. I love Mitch Marner. But the more I watch him in the playoffs, I'm really worried that his style of play is not conducive of playoff hockey. And what I mean by that is Mitch is so used to in the regular season having time and space, that extra few seconds, time and space to see the lanes, find the lanes, and thread the pass through, because he's a magician of a playmaker. He doesn't have that in the playoffs. And I really think he struggles with it. He is not a goal scorer. And, credit to Montreal, they covered Austin Matthews. And that's the smart thing to do. Austin Matthews is the reigning Rocket Richard Trophy winner. You cover Austin Matthews. Mitch, though, for what he's paid, in the playoffs, you gotta produce, man. I'm sorry, you gotta produce. Just very disappointing. I could go on all day about that, but the big boys have to produce, plain and simple. You could even look at other series. Look at Colorado. I know it was the first game of a series, and you could argue Vegas, was maybe a little bit tired out and emotionally drained from that game 7 in Minnesota, and they were right for the picking there against Colorado. Who produces for Colorado? Do you see Nate McKinnon? That guy's a fucking horse. Like, he's unbelievable. He makes shit happen. That is one of the top players in the league. That's what you need your stars to do, especially when your teammates are down and they need a pick me up. Your big boys come out to play. That's why you pay them the big bucks. But anyway.
Yeah, all very valid points. What about you, Brett? Maybe a few players you were just not happy with, and some you enjoyed watching and thought were good this series. Oh, you're muted.
The biggest disappointment in my mind, and I'm not going to continue to shit on him, but we've already touched on him, was Mitch Marner. Like, I said in episode 1, he took 6 penalties and 5 were over the glass penalties. Like, how the hell do you do that? It just put your stick down, temper your pass out of the zone. It's not difficult to keep the fucking puck down. So I'm not even going to name you 3 because I expected way more from Mitch Marner. Who I was impressed with, Jason Spezza, again, like $700,000 for a guy who's almost 40 years old. I'm so glad that he came back to Toronto last year. I'm so glad that he re-signed this year. I'm going to call him, and it's going to be completely offside. I'm going to call him the prodigal son. The prodigal son came home to win a Stanley Cup, and we completely just ruined it. Just decimated. Jack Campbell, out of his mind. Absolutely amazing. For a guy who only played double-digit games twice in his career during a season, unbelievable. We don't have Jack Campbell. We don't really have a series. And I was really, really impressed. Even though he didn't produce, he had a good second half and he started to speed up a little bit, was William Nylander. And again, you guys both know, episode 1, I shit on William Nylander from the moment he got re-signed until middle of the season. And he decided to pick it up. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think Mitch Marner, I think I'll make it the trifecta. Like, he just looked like a lost child out there. Like someone was saying on Facebook earlier, like he just looked like a little kid among men. Like he was falling over without even being touched. Like, I think he was just nervous to begin with, on top of just, I don't even know why he was that invisible. Matthews, I wouldn't even say Matthews, but he didn't really get points, but like you said, led in hits, and he was at least going to the dirty areas. But you can't have 2 out of 3 of your guys on your line going into the corners. Like, Hyman would do it, but Marner was just like perimeter the whole time, and like he kept sneaking the whole defense out and then waiting, and then he would hit a body and miss the net. So my God, like I love Mitch too, but it was just so hard to watch him play in this series. Like, I don't even know where to begin with him, but in terms of impressed, another trifecta, definitely Spezza for the money he's making. It's like him and Joe Thornton, you see the speed they had in the last 5 minutes. They were quicker than the guys who were 22, 23 years old. Like, come on, you guys got to do better. If the old guys are skating harder than you, there's something wrong. And definitely Jack Campbell as well. Unbelievable. Like, I'm still with you, Danny. I don't know if he is a starter, but he's definitely earned his chance to try to be. And just watching him that upset in the post game was just, that was the icing on the cake for me. That's when I hit rock bottom, is when I saw him, because Oh man, he's like the nicest dude you'll ever meet. The team loves him, the city loves him, the fans love him, and clearly management and the coaching love him because he's the positive guy that never seems to be down until again we hit rock bottom. And yeah, I don't know what else to say on that, but that leads to the off season. And again, this is more prediction based than anything. Even Elliot Friedman and Stewart there didn't know what to say because they're not behind the scenes. But like, I don't know, who do you guys think we should move? Because it's hard to kind of predict that. And what do we do with Hyman and the other UFAs? Do you guys think? Like, I don't know.
It's tough, man. I've done a lot of thinking about that over the course of today. Obviously, I'm talking with coworkers, I'm talking with people at work, and then family when I get home, and talking to friends and all that. And a bunch of scenarios go through, having different personalities, different conversations come up, right? I've gone through such a wide range of emotion today. I've been pissed off, I've been depressed, I've been angry, I've been upset. But you know what? Like, if we film this podcast in the morning, I think this would be a different podcast from my perspective, anyway. From my end, I think now that I've had some time to kind of decompress, I'm still very upset at this team. I think a lot of us are, and they deserve all the criticism that they're going to receive, every single bit of it, because they can't get the job done. They flat out can't get the job done. They've had 7 opportunities now to eliminate an opponent over the past 5 years with this core group. Something has to give, right? Like, I don't know if you can continue to roll with this same core nucleus and expect anything different. Isn't that kind of the definition of it in insanity? Remember, we used to always criticize Mike Babcock. He used to roll out the same lines expecting a different result. And we all used to yell at the TV, say, what the hell are you doing? And it would be the same result. So I think something has to happen. I think they get too comfortable. And again, I'm not in the locker room. This is just me watching as an outsider. I think they tend to get, they're too buddy. They're too comfortable with one another. And it's one thing to do to do it in the regular season. We have 2 of the top 5 points leaders in the league on this team. That's fucking awesome. Like, who wouldn't want that? But when they don't produce in the playoffs, it doesn't matter. One of the guys at work today that I was talking with, he brought up the conversation piece of you're never going to win when you're allocating X amount of cap dollars, whatever high percentage of cap dollars it is, to your top 4 forwards. And I said, well, hold on, wait a second. I said, and he'd go back and forth and he'd kind of try and interrupt. And I'm like, no, hold on. Like, hear me out here. How is it that it's not an issue during the regular season, right? Where they're getting paid the money. There's no cap in the postseason, right? Like, ask Tampa that. They're like 17 million over the cap or whatever. Now they work some magic, but still, it's not an issue in the regular season. These boys produce. If it were an issue, we would see, whether it was injury or they weren't producing, then you could make an argument for that. To me, it has nothing to do with the money. It has to do with the player and making the adjustment to postseason hockey. They've got to figure it out at some point, but like, I don't know if it could be taught. Like, you would think over 5 years, those boys are going to learn that. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
to answer your question, Clay, it's a tough one. Like, what do you do next? I don't want to come on here and throw out emotional decisions, because that's not who I am. I'm very curious. Like, I really want to hear, and I'm not trying to cop out or anything, but I really want to hear what Kyle Dubas and Brendan Shanahan have to say tomorrow when they speak in their media availability, before I kind of comment on that. Like, I'm curious to see how the brain trust in the Maple Leafs organization views this. Many people are throwing out, Sheldon Keefe, it's Sheldon Keefe's fault. I think everyone has shoulders some blame in this. Like, don't get me wrong. I think this is on the players, though. Like I truly believe this is on the player. So I'll go down this road. Since you asked me about what do you do in the offseason, how about I comment on players that I think I would bring back, personally, because we have a lot of UFAs, a lot of pending UFAs.
Yeah. Before you get to that, I'll just list the players that are UFAs because I feel like that'll help all of us a little bit. So we got Riley Nash, who was just a piece in the Foligno deal. Zach Hyman, Wayne Simmons, Nick Foligno, Alex Galchenyuk, Jason Spezza, Joe Thornton, Zach Bogosian, Ben Hutton, Martin Marincin, Freddie, and David Riddick.
Brett, did you want to go first, man? I took the mic there for a while.
Why. So I think Freddie's gone. I think it's safe to say that. I love him too, but it's just time for him to go. He's given all he can, in my opinion, to this team. Riddick he's a take him or leave him kind of guy, because when he was in Calgary, he was so Jekyll and Hyde. He'd either be Carey Price or David Abisher. You don't know who you're going to get with him. So he's 50-50, because I really do like David Riddick, and I think he is a locker room guy. But is he the 1B to Campbell? I don't know. That one's hard. Marincin, that's another take him or leave him for me. I mean, great depth guy. Again, another one of these Liljegren's who's great in the AHL, just doesn't really crack much of the 6 or 7D in the NHL. Dermott is serviceable, but I don't know. He's another take him or leave him kind of guy. Ben Hutton, another good depth guy. Not sure what he would ask for. If it's the minimum, I'd take him just to have that 7th D. Bogosian, again, if it's near the minimum, I don't see a problem with him. He wasn't bad. Other than one pinch in game 5 that cost the game, that's about all I really saw mistake-wise from him. Joe is a hard guy to let go because of the veteran presence, but he's also turning 42 in the summer. So I'd rather Spezza over Thornton because he's 3 years younger. And Spezza, like we said, if he asks for the minimum again, I don't see why you wouldn't bring him back. The only guy that dropped the gloves in the bubble last year, which led to our 3-goal comeback. And I just feel like he is an intangible, and he is a great locker room guy. He's a leader. Galchenyuk, that's another one to me that depends on the money, but I didn't really have a problem with him either. He was the combination of Bogosian that made the mistake in game 5. So that one's iffy. Nick Foligno, I don't know what to say about him because he was hurt. I can't really make a judgment call because he got hurt almost right away. It's like Dangle said, he didn't choose to get hurt. Simmons, he had a good start, but the injury really set him back. That's another take him or leave him for me. Zach Hyman, to me, you have to find a way to keep him. You have to. He is just hurt. And so I believe he had a knee injury in this series. I really do. I don't think he was 100%. I think he either re-injured himself or just wasn't 100%. Riley Nash, I saw him twice. So it's another take him or leave him guy for me. All right, Danny, on to you. What do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. The subject matter. I was texting a buddy earlier, and he asked me this exact question, and I texted to him. So I'm actually going to read directly from my text. I would 100%. I think we could unanimously agree. I'm just going to guess that Bret would be on board with this as well. Jason Spezza, I think unanimously would come back if he's willing to come back, and he's willing to come back for a 3rd straight year at league minimum, even though the guy deserves a pay raise. If anyone deserves a pay raise, that fucking guy deserves a pay raise. But let's say he's willing for the betterment of the team. And I'm going to roll my eyes when I say this, and it fucking hurts to say it, trust me, but to compete for a Stanley Cup, oh man. So bring back Spets, say around $700K. Riley Nash, it's an interesting one. We didn't get to see the best of Riley Nash by any stretch of the imagination. And when I mean by the best by Riley Nash, he's a depth forward, but he's a very good shutdown center iceman, right? He could be a third or fourth line center iceman. I don't like him at his current value, and I don't think he will get that on the open market. I think he's around like 275 now. To me, there's no way anybody's going to pay Riley Nash 275 unless they have to get to the cap floor. I would take a gamble at Riley Nash on a 1 or 2 year deal around 1.5 million as a solid depth sort of veteran center option in the bottom six. Zach Bogosian, you touched on it, Clay. I really like what I saw from Zach Bogosian. The knock on him coming onto the Leafs team this year was that he was slow. I really didn't see too much of that. I thought he was pretty damn good, and I liked them playing with one of our mobile D, either Rasmus Sandin or Travis Dermott. Travis Dermott to me is a take it or leave it type guy. I actually think if it were up to me, and it's not, but if it were up to me, I'd kind of move on from Travis Dermott and I would promote Rasmus Sandin. You need to get that. You need to find that kid some minutes. And I think pairing him with a veteran like Bogosian, would sort of, hide some of his mistakes, but also get his feet wet at the NHL level over a full season. Then you can get him some power play time in there as well. Nick Foligno. I totally agree with what you said, Clayton. I don't think we saw anywhere near the best of Nick Foligno. I think that guy was really banged up. He could barely move out there, and I think he was just kind of going on fumes there at the end. Kind of felt bad for the guy. I'm sure he wanted nothing more than to give his all and succeed. Wearing his dad's former number, and obviously playing for his hometown Maple Leafs. I'm sure he wanted to go way better than it did. I would revisit that with him. I'm not sure about his family situation. I know they live in Columbus and his kids go to school in Columbus. Obviously his wife's there too. And not sure what he wants to do there. I would entertain bringing Nick Foligno back on, say, like a 2 year deal at 2.5 million. But not any more than that, because he's, in my opinion, he's arguably a bottom six forward at this point in his career. I think he's a really good, like, energy third line player. I know they were going to pair him with Tavares and Nylander, assuming everyone was healthy and everything went well. I still think Nick Foligno is best as sort of that depth, grinded out, energy third line player at this point in his career. Wayne Simmons, I would entertain Wayne Simmons. I like how you termed it, Clay, being, you take it or leave it. There was some good and some bad with Wayne. I thought he kind of went missing there in the last 3 games, unfortunately. Not blaming him for any of it. It's the big boys. Yeah. But Wayne Simmons kind of went MIA. I thought he was a real force early on in the series. I remember there was that one play, I think it was in game 2, towards the end when it got a little bit chippy. And he looked over at the Montreal bench and he pointed out his eyes and he looked over at the Montreal bench saying, "I'm watching you." I love that. It seemed like he kind of got deflated towards the end of the series. And I don't know, maybe it was a combination of Muzzin kind of going out of the lineup and he didn't feel protected, but he seemed to kind of wear off from that physical component. Zach Hyman, this one's a real tough one. I love Zach Hyman. This guy's a workhorse, always has for all his time in the blue and white. I think it just really all depends. I don't think there's any fan of the Leafs that would want to get rid of Zach Hyman. I think it really all hinders and depends on what kind of cap value or what kind of cap hit is Zach Hyman looking for. If he's looking for a massive payday, and by massive I'm talking, the rumors have it in the $5 to $6 million range. That's not doable or feasible, nor do I think that he's worth that. I kind of think his offense in the regular season's a little bit of an anomaly. He's a really good player and he does some really good things. He's a great complementary piece. I don't think he's an offensive player that you pay that much money for. He's not Brendan Gallagher, right? Like Brendan Gallagher, I know he didn't produce in this series very well, and he was banged up coming in. Who knows how healthy he was? Yes, he scored unfortunately a big goal last night, and it probably shouldn't have gone in, but we won't. I don't know. I won't spend too much time harping on Jack Campbell about that. But Gallagher's a better goal scorer. He's a 30 goal scorer in the league. Zach Hyman is not. You're not going to be within $1 million and a half of Brandon Gallagher, are you? Like, if not, this Leafs team cannot afford to do that. I'm thinking around the $4.5 million range for Zach Hyman. And then last but not least, Alex Galchenyuk, if he's willing to come back on sort of a 1 year prove me kind of deal over the course of a full season, around $1 million, $900K, $1 million in that range. I think he fits in well with John Tavares. And then if we want to get into in time, we'll let Bret take the mic here, but we'll get into what we want to do in the off season. I didn't mention Willie there last, but Bret, you take it over, brother.
Guys, I like where you're going with all this. My one caveat, because I agree with all of you, is Dermott. I think he's going to be left unprotected. I think he's going to go to Seattle. I think they're going to sign him. He's going to be left unprotected, and then Seattle's going to pick him up. I
think it's going to be Kerfoot or Hall.
You might be right, but I think that Dermott is. I don't think he fits in Toronto. And I've been saying that for a year. I can respect and appreciate what you both think about him, but I have not felt that he fits on the blue line at all. Spets, like we all said, like, he's a heart and soul guy. He's almost 40 as well. He's good in the locker room. Last year, when he picked up some fights, he does what guys don't want to do. He will stick up for your team. He will put a puck in the net, in front of the net, no less. Like, he will actually sit there in the blue paint if he needs to. I love Jason Spezza. I was really high on Simmons until he got injured, and I'd like to see him back. Nick Foligno, 11 games for a first-round draft pick. So you kind of just, I think you got to flip a coin there. And I know you guys like Zach Hyman, but I think he's gone. I think he's just gonna ask for way too much money.
I don't know. Like, Hyman's an interesting one because he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would ask for a massive pay raise. I could be wrong, but I don't know. If you can get him for maybe 4.75 at the ceiling, maximum, absolute maximum would be 5. I think you take a shot. I just really feel like his work ethic could show some of those guys something. And I know work ethic's not everything, but he was banged up and he was given more than most guys on the team. But that's tough. Now, going back to Foligno, he only makes 1.375. And I don't think he did enough for a pay raise, about maybe 200,000. Like, you could give him 1.5, maybe 1.75, but other than that, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Can I jump in there just really quickly at a comment on Foligno? His cap hit on Cap Friendly only says that because don't forget, Columbus retained 50%. No, but Columbus retained 50%, and then San Jose retained 50%, and the Leafs sent something to say. I forget what they sent to San Jose. San Jose retained the other portion. I think it was 25%. So the Leafs only had 25% of Foligno's cap hit. That's why he was up there in Columbus. Don't forget, he was their captain, and it was his last year of, I don't know if it was a 4 or 5 year deal. But and they kind of have to overpay some players to play in Columbus. But I wanted to throw that out there. So that's why
I totally forgot about that. Here I'm thinking he's Spezza's age, but he's not. But he's a hard worker. Now, I wouldn't give him more than 5 personally. Not a chance. It's Hyman or him, really. And Hyman's younger, so I would rather take Hyman over him. Again, I could be wrong. Bret might be right. He could be gone. He could walk. Like, you don't know that. As for Dermott, he's an RFA. Now, he only gets unprotected if we don't qualify him. I think if we qualify him, they can't pick him, but I don't think the Leafs are going to qualify Dermott. I don't see it. I like Dermott a lot too, but Brett, you're right. He doesn't belong on this team. Like, I hate saying that about a player, but he just doesn't fit the mold. Like, I don't know how many offensive defensemen we can have. We need,
and it hurts me because when he came onto this roster, like I thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and then he immediately disappointed me.
yeah, I agree with you. I really liked him too, and then it didn't work. What do you guys think? The only one you guys didn't touch on was Riddick. What do we do with Riddick? Like, do we sign him? Do we take a shot, or should we test the market for the other goalie?
David Riddick, for me, it's as Jeff O'Neill would say, no guy. No guy to David Riddick. No, thank you. I think, and let's just project ahead here. I'm not Kyle Dubas, and I don't pretend to be, although I wish I was. I don't think they're going to go back to David Riddick. I think they paid the 3rd round pick just in case, they were in a deep playoff run. I think that was the projection for this team. So why they pay the 1st round pick for Nick Foligno, so on and so forth. It was an insurance policy. I think David Riddick is done as a Maple Leaf, in my opinion. I think I think Freddie Anderson's done as well. And I think that's the right move. He's going to want to get paid somewhere else. So to answer your question, no to David Riddick. You need to find somebody else to kind of compete with Jack Campbell, because I do agree with you, Clay. He deserves an opportunity in between the pipes for what he's shown, but it's an opportunity in my mind to compete for the number 1 job, and you need to bring in somebody else who's also there to compete, because I am not sold quite yet. I need to see longevity in the position.
Yeah, I think so. I think he is gone. I love the guy. His charity causes, and my other podcast is about disability awareness. I'd love to have him on my show, but that's about the most I can say. I don't think he stays. What do you think, Brett? You think he's gone too?
Yeah, I think he's gone. I didn't mind him here. Very, very small sample size. Yeah, take him or leave him. But I think he's gone. But the problem is that who do you bring in to compete with Jack Campbell? That's the $1 million question.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of thinking to do. I think Dubas is an advanced stats guy. I have no doubt he'll have his 3 or 4 in mind that can potentially keep up with him. But I don't know. It is hard. Like, goalies are such a gamble. Like, you can have not like an 850 save percentage and all of a sudden get a 925 the next year. Like, you just don't know. Like, Campbell's a prime example. Like we said, 2 seasons before this one, he had more than 10 or more starts. And it's like, I would never have expected him to be this good, but he's earned his chance, and I guess let's see who we bring in. And so we've talked about who we would re-sign, and I know we sort of touched on it at the beginning, but are there any pieces you guys think we should trade or could trade at the time right now who maybe have a higher trade value? Like, who do you guys think we could maybe spring a deal for?
Brett, you go first, my friend.
William Nylander. His trade value right now is highest that it's ever been, in my opinion. I'm going to stop dumping on him because I kind of come around to liking him, but I think that he's got the highest trade value out of anybody that is on this roster right now.
Okay, so in saying that, and sorry, I don't mean to jump in there. I think it's great discussion. Who do you trade him for? Can you come up with a name? And what are you looking for in a trade? Because you're then taking away one of your top 4 forwards. Who's going to fill Willie's spot?
I know, and the problem is that if you're trading Willie Nylander, in my opinion, ideally you want a number 1 defenseman. And I know that's tough. I know that it seems unreasonable, but I don't think he's worth a number 1 defenseman, but I think that's who you need to target.
So then who takes Willie's spot? How do you fill Willie's spot with a 30 goal scorer?
Well,
that's the problem.
Yeah.
Like were the Leafs not improved defensively this year?
Absolutely they were. But
okay, so so, we talked about Morgan Riley, being an option, because I 100% agree with you with Morgan Riley. I think, this core does need a bit of a shakeup. They've had 5 years with it. They haven't been able to get the job done. Time to get out of their comfort zone a little bit. So I totally agree with you with Morgan Riley being somebody you move on from. And I would love for them to get a top defenseman, a number one, if you will, i.e. Seth Jones. Fucking love that guy. I hope they can somehow get Seth Jones. If you trade Willie, though, and this is the part that I struggle with, like, I'm all for, almost anybody should be available, considering, barring the right return. But if you trade Willie for a defenseman, who fills Willie's spot? Now, all of a sudden, your offense has taken a huge hit. You've lost 30 goals, because that's how they look at it in management. How am I going to replace 30 goals in my lineup?
Yeah, that's that's a good question.
And you can't. But again, like Clay asked, like, who would you trade? Willie's got the highest trade value out of anybody on that roster right now.
I know, but like,
Yeah.
you have to consider that, though, right? Like, it's not just as simple as, I don't like William Nylander, I need to trade him. It's like, if, like, for example, and I know you're not saying that, but like, say if you could trade, like, in my mind, and this is not going to happen, like, it's not going to happen, but say William Nylander for a Matthew Tkachuk in Calgary. The Calgary really needs offense. They need some speed. They need some offense in their lineup. Not saying Matthew Tkachuk doesn't bring that, but I'm just throwing him out there because he brings a little bit of what we're looking for. I think a little bit of that jam, a little more heart, a little more natural grit with some finish. He's a rare commodity. I would consider moving a Willie for that type of piece. I don't know if that's out there. That might be wishful thinking on my end, but I would be very hesitant to move him for a defenseman. I don't mind our top 4D. To me, it wasn't our defense that faltered in this series. It was the lack of production from up front. And here we are talking about depleting that depth up front by trading away one of your top 4 forwards. I think that's very dangerous. I would consider, again, moving Willie for a same or similar piece. Like, what about Philip Forsberg out in Nashville? Assuming you could sign him and it's a relatively comparable deal. What about a player like that? Maybe a change of scenery for Willie, and then you bring in a Philip Forsberg to fill in that void. A little bit something different, maybe a little bit more snarl, a little bit more grit, but you're not depleting 30 goals from your lineup.
No, and you're right. It's what this team needs. You're absolutely right. A guy that can put 30 pucks in the net, and a guy that isn't afraid to get into the corner like a Zach Hyman, but is a little bit more grittier than Zach Hyman. And again, no knock on Zach Hyman. Love the guy. I do. Again, we're going back in circles about Zach Hyman. But I just think to fill your roster out, I think you need a guy like that all throughout 1, 2, 3, 4. You need guys like that in your lineup. So a guy like Philip Forsberg may fit. I really am struggling to figure out why we don't have a shot up from the point.
Sorry, Clay, go ahead, my friend.
No, I was just gonna say, like, the one name that I thought, now he's very likely not available because they just traded a major piece for him. That's Anthony Mantha in Washington. I believe they traded Zadina for him. I'd prefer him over Nylander because he hits, he scores. He's a 30-goal scorer 3 times, actually, in Detroit, of all places. So that's a name, a Tkachuk or a Mantha type player that can score, but also kind of piss the other team off a little bit without being dirty. Now, a Tom Wilson would also be a good type player if he was clean. I would take the caliber of style and the grit of a Tom Wilson just without the suspensions. So I don't know. It's hard. It's more of a hypothetical, though. It's just who you guys think has the best value and who could be a potential move in the offseason.
Yeah, I think the biggest potential move trade wise is definitely Morgan Riley. I honestly I think there's something there. Bret just mentioned it about a lack of shot from the point. Absolutely 100% bang on, because another reason why we faltered in this past series against Montreal, our lack of production on the power play. This team has no shortage of offense, but for some reason they struggle on the power play with the man advantage. Why is that? Again, mentioned it in the first podcast. It pisses me off because I've been saying it for years. I don't understand for the life of me. If I can see it, and I'm no hockey expert or anything like that. I don't claim to be, but I'd like to think I know a bit about the game. You need more shot options on a power play for it to be dangerous. I'm going to give you some examples. Let's look at Boston's power play. That is a deadly power play because they have 3 or 4 shot options, legitimate 3 or 4 shot options. Bergeron, I believe, hangs out in that bumper position, and Marchand and Pasta are on either flank. Pick your poison. Who are you going to double team? Who are you going to cover? You're going to leave one of them open. It's deadly. And then they have guys like Brendan Carlo and Charlie McAvoy that are not shy to tee it up from the point. Are they, 20 goal scorers as defensemen? No, but they're not shy. It's a threat of a shot from the point, and their players go to the net. They crash the net. They bang at the net. They go to the dirty areas. Again, something we talked about. That's the difference. You need shot options on the power play. It can't be 34 all the time. Then you're putting too much heat on Austin, and everyone knows it's going to him. I would cover Austin too. I wouldn't let him breathe out there because he has a deadly shot, best shot in the National Hockey League. Why the hell would I let him shoot? Who else is going to shoot? They don't have any other options on that power play. So, they've got to figure that out. That power play struggled now for over 3 years. They've had their spurts where they've been good, but consistently not very good at all. I still say the player that should be moved, and it kind of shakes the core and the longevity, and it just kind of brings these guys a little bit out of their comfort zone. 100% Morgan Riley. I would consider trading William Nylander. As I got emotional today and I got pissed off, I started to think. You read all these tweets and comments and all that sort of stuff about Mitch Marner. I'll admit, my mind kind of went there for a minute, but the more I think about it, I'll go back to my comments from the first podcast. He is such an elite talent. I'm just wondering if maybe different pieces paired with him in Austin. So some fan on the radio, I thought this was a great point. I never thought of it in this regard, because we all think Austin, Mitch, and Zach are a perfect combo together. But for example, this is what this, I believe it was a fan on the radio said, threw out the suggestion of maybe that's the wrong combination, because Montreal covered Austin Matthews and they made damn sure he wasn't open. They gave the opportunities to Mitch Marner and to Zach Hyman, both not known for their goal scoring, both not known as great shooters. So you pick your poison. Yeah. They took the big boy that could pot it. Maybe somebody else needs to go on that wing, right? And that the fan mentioned, and I never thought of it this way, because his point was Sheldon Keefe should have made this adjustment, knowing that they were covering Matthews and Marner and Hyman were struggling to put the puck in the net, shake it up a little bit. William Nylander wasn't, and he has a shot. So why didn't you go back to Willie playing with Matty and move Mitch down to another line in hopes that maybe that sparked him? I thought that was a really good point. And I never really thought of that way, because all I thought of, you roll with your horses, you roll with what worked for you. And maybe that was Sheldon's mentality. Yeah. But I thought that individual on the radio had a really good point there. And I never thought of it from that angle. And, it kind of makes sense.
Definitely. And before I get to a piece, I think we should move. I think, I'll go by stats alone. If you go 2 seasons back, or even the first 3 quarters of last season before COVID hit, Tavares was in the 90s in points playing with Marner. I think Tavares had 90 or 88 or 89. It was close to 90. It was high 80s. and Mitch had his best season with, I think, 94 points. So I think you move Marner back with Tavares. Like, Nylander and Tavares are both possession guys where they don't give the puck up very often. So you arguably have your two best guys with the puck in terms of possession. I'm not saying in terms of skill, because Mitch is the best dangler and passer on our team as far as I'm concerned. But I think you move Mitch back with Johnny and you put Willie with Matthews, because Willie was a 30-goal guy with Matthews as well. Like, to me, you give that a shot. Like, I love to see Marner and Matthews together, but it just, you're right. Like, he won't shoot it. He needs to learn to shoot. He also needs to put muscle on. I don't think Marner lives up to the rest of his 5 years of his contract if he doesn't start to produce in the playoffs. Like, he's got a year or two to prove that he can, in my opinion. In terms of a trade, I'm the same as you, Danny, today, where I thought a few times about Marner, but then I thought, no, you got to give him a few more chances to produce. Like, the guy is an elite talent. It's clear. Like, it's not rocket science. He's good. I tend to think more along Bret's line. Like, I don't want to give away a 30-goal scorer, but Nylander arguably is the highest trade value, because as much as I love Mitch, not many teams are going to take that contract. I can tell you that much, but that's just what I think. I don't know. It's hard.
So how about this fantasy trade? I'm going to run this by you boys. I've run it by a few other friends, and I want people to hear it here first, just in case it happens. We know that Jack Eichel is pissed off in Buffalo. I don't blame him. I said 2 years ago that Jack Eichel is going to ask for a trade very, very soon. You could see it coming a mile away. What about, we've mentioned Morgan Riley, right? We've mentioned William Nylander as possible moves, or you guys have. And my only issue with that is who replaces his scoring value. So how about this for a fantasy trade? Okay. And it works cap-wise too. And it kind of appeases both markets. What about a crazy deal to Buffalo, Willie and Mo to Buffalo for Eichel and a struggling Rasmus Dahlin, a young, full of potential, but mightily struggling Rasmus Dahlin, who is an offensive defenseman. He's not a number one defenseman, but an offensive-minded defenseman who maybe you could throw there on the power play on one unit and Rasmus Sandin on the other. But it kind of, it gives you that lesser cap hit for a little while because Dahlin's got to prove himself again. I don't know if Buffalo's willing to give him up at this point. Obviously, first overall draft pick. It all depends on the appetite there of Kevin Adams in Buffalo. But that trade, and maybe the Leafs have to throw something else in too, right? Like a B-level prospect or something like that, just to give Buffalo some more depth. Like, I don't know, just to throw a name out like Timothy Liljegren. Maybe there's, maybe Buffalo could see a reclamation project there. But Morgan Riley, William Nylander, because I don't know how Buffalo, if they trade Jack Eichel, is going to get some sort of a resemblance of a star or a high-skilled player that's ready to go now. So yeah. To me, that's just I just threw that out there. That's all.
I like it. I think that would work. Like, Dahlin is really good. He is skilled. Another defenseman on that team, and I know he's not offensive, but another option would be Ristolainen. Ristolainen would look good. He's massive. The guy is he's bigger than Bogosian. Like, imagine a guy bigger than Bogosian. But I don't know. I like it. What about you, Bret? What do you think of that little NHL 21 GM mode trade?
It's always fun to hear what Danny's got brewing in his head. I've heard it for years. And Clay, you're right. That kid is he almost seems like he's twice the size of Bogosian, really, even though he's not. It's hard. Like I would do it. Could you convince Kevin Adams? Maybe. it seems like no, Danny, don't look at me like that, because it seems like every single time the Pagulas or whoever owns or runs the Boston Bruins, the Buffalo Sabres, every time they bring somebody in, they don't know what they're doing.
And that's where it becomes potentially possible. All of a sudden, these fantasy trades become potentially possible because of the beautiful ownership there in Buffalo and the Pagulas.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. Do the Pagulas really like owning the Buffalo Sabres? Probably not. But is it a money pit? I would think that it's a money pit for when Toronto comes down. I would think that it's a money pit because they're nice and close to New York City. They're nice and close to Long Island. It's super cheap to go down to a game. I think that there is absolutely no way you don't make that trade, or you offer that trade. You have to offer that trade if it comes up.
I think either Rasmus would look great. I think Dahlin or Ristolainen would be great pieces.
You don't know what his cap hit is offhand, do you, Clay? Ristolainen's. I'm just curious.
I'm gonna go cap friendly Sabres,
because he is a beast. But and maybe it's only because he plays in Buffalo. But to me, I just don't know if I trust him. I trust him defensively enough on a team. And again, I'm going to roll my eyes here. A team that's trying to compete for the Stanley Cup. Fuck me. But
Ristolainen is 5.4, which is only 400,000 more than Morgan Riley. I can't believe I just blanked on his name. Dahlin is an RFA, so it'd be a sign and trade if we did that. But obviously, it's only 900,000 because he's a rookie contract right now. I'd like to think he'd be about Ristolainen's value. Like, honestly, like, I think they're both really good. Now, mind you, Dahlin is 5 years younger, but 26 for Ristolainen is not young by any stretch either. I think Morgan's close to 30 now, if he isn't already.
So just to clarify, you said Rasmus Ristolainen is 5.4. So like I'm doing the math here. Like Jack Campbell, Jack Eichel in Buffalo makes 10 million flat. That's his cap hit. He's 10 million flat, and he signed an 8-year deal, however many years ago. So that's another benefit to trading to get that guy. You have him locked up for a lengthy period of time. But doing the math, you're taking on more cap hit, right? More cap space. You're hurting yourself even more. I guess my whole thought process with, and again, I might be stretching it a little bit because Rasmus Dahlin, first overall pick, defenseman take longer. I think I'm trying to cherry pick there. I think it's more of like what you alluded to, maybe an EA Sports video game trade. The Mo and Nylander for Eichel kind of work. I need a defenseman coming back, not necessarily to cover Morgan Riley's position, but I want something for the future on the back end there, tangibly on the future, because I need to save a little bit of cap space, right? Because Morgan Riley's, I think, $5 million per season. I think that's his cap hit currently. William Nylander is, I think, 6.9 million, if I'm not mistaken. It's either 6.7 or 6.9. It's in that range. So you add those figures up, you're going to save a little bit on the cap if you acquire Jack Eichel in a trade. My thought process there is you play Eichel and Matthews together. That's that dominant American duo. I think they'd really dig that too. And then to your point, you move Mitch back with John, and then you kind of plug and play your other wing pieces. And in time, you could always use Jack and Matty could always kind of, and again, I don't know what hand Jack shoots with. I don't know if it's opposite to Matty, but maybe they could also kind of reverse on different faceoffs. If one has a strong side or one is better at different faceoffs than the other, they can kind of reverse off. It gives you that option as well on that line. But it also sets up another shot on the power play, another deadly shot on the power play. Like you're going to have to pick your poison there, right? And then you free up Mitch to play with John, and Mitch can be a driver on his own line. That to me is a real interesting one. I just don't know how feasible it is. We'll see.
All I can tell you is the worst. Like, I'm not saying the worst in terms of who we'd get, but one of the worst offers I heard today was Marner and Riley for Seth Jones and Line. I was like, oh God, no. No way.
Fuck.
I'd take Line on my team because his shot is deadly, and if he plays with the right guys, he would be sick in a Leafs jersey. But no way, not over Mitch Marner. What has Line done? It's like Jesse Pollock used to say that Line was better than Matthews, and then finally he came around to say, okay, Matthews is better. I'll give it to you. But that was the worst one I saw today. Like, are you crazy? Like,
yeah, that's bogus. That to me, that's a non-starter. But it's not even close. Patrick Line, like we're talking about, this Maple Leaf team not being able to get over the hurdles, and we're talking about our star forwards going MIA in the playoffs. What do we think Patrick Line will do? Patrick Line was MIA his entire time in Columbus. I think I can count on one hand how many goals he scored in Columbus, maybe touched on to two hands. He was pathetic in Columbus. Like, he was awful. His headspace, he wants to move on. He's already let it be known that he wants to move out to the West Coast. He has 1 foot out the door. He's going to force Columbus. He's going to force poor Jarmo Kekalainen to move him to one of the California teams. He wants to be in LA or San Jose. Probably not San Jose because he wants to win as well. But even Anaheim's got some good young talent coming up in Zugras and those guys. So you never. I see a trade happening out there. I love the Seth Jones move too, but there's so many moving parts and pieces. One of those deals, to me, it sounds like too much of a fantasy trade. I loved Seth Jones though. I think the world of Seth Jones.
If we're going to talk about Columbus for a minute, and I know this is a Leaf podcast, but if we're going to talk about Columbus, I'd like to see what Line is going to do without John Tortorella just sitting on his shoulders, because that in itself has got to be tough. I can appreciate John Tortorella. I have no idea how he's lasted so long as an NHL coach.
Well, he's won quite a bit. I don't hate the guy. I think his expectation of his players is just really high. Now, I don't love him, but I don't know. He's a weird one. He hasn't aged well as a coach though, because he's too old school. But you can't just cater to your players either. Like, it's like the Leafs. Like, as much as I love Matthews, Marner, like I truly believe the team paid them too much too early. They didn't earn anything. All the analysts are saying, like, you can't just pay a guy $11 million before he succeeds. But we could get political, but a lot of it also comes down to the tax rate in Canada. Like, there's no way they'd be making $11 million in Tampa. They just wouldn't. But I don't know. I half agree with that and half just think, oh my God, we're just wasting our years. But we could go all day. I think that's about it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. And before we go, I just wanted to touch on Kamloops. So absolutely devastating news. 215 bodies of children were found at a residential school in Kamloops. And I truly believe that that kind of thing is bigger than hockey. I eat, sleep, breathe the Toronto Maple Leafs, but we're going to post some links in the description of charities that go straight to the Aboriginal people who have survived residential schools. I feel like it's really important. If you're able to afford it, I'd really appreciate if you could donate to that, because like I said, it's a lot bigger than hockey, and the Aboriginals are the blood and soul of this country. And I just truly believe that we should be giving back to them as much as we can. But on behalf of Danny and Bret, thanks again, guys, for joining us. And once again, if you enjoyed it, if you could share it around, we'd really appreciate it. And we look at any questions you have. We look forward to answering any questions or reading any feedback you have. All right, guys. Well, thanks again, and catch you next time.
Thanks, boys.
Thanks, guys.